Welcome to Hector the Hero, Lesson 2! All workshop details in the link below the video. In this lesson, we're tackling one little chunk again, but there's 3 different kind of variations of it. Like it happens 3 different ways in the first 2 lines of the tune. So we're going to tackle each of those because they're similar. And then you're going to have, again, a whole bunch of the tune under your belt. And we're going to string all these little chunks of the tune together in future lessons. So in this one, we ended off lesson 1 on the low A. We're going up to F. If we get there without the grace note, we're just lifting the bottom 2 fingers of the top hand to go from low A up to F. And if you're going to get there with the grace note, you just have to lift up that top finger first, then the other 2 fingers lift and that top finger snaps back down. And as you hear, from that F we drop 1 finger down to the E. We're not on that E very long before we drop down to the C, so we're skipping that D note going down the scale. We're just going straight to the C. The ring finger pops down of the top hand. At the same time, the pinky finger pops down of the bottom hand, and the middle 2 fingers are going to pop right up on the bottom hand. So lots going on there. This transition can be a tricky one. If you're new to transitions from top to bottom hand, that's a good place to pause the video. And this little section we've done so far is the exact same for all 3 times this little chunk occurs in the first half of the tune. So let's talk about the first time this occurs. After we end off on that C, we go up to the E. So if you practice that transition and pause the video, you'll be set, because we're just going from C up to E. We'll talk about the doubling in a minute, but even if you aren't doing embellishments, once you go to that E, we have a long E, and then we need to do a strike. Even if you're not doing embellishments, I know you can handle this one because we have to separate those 2 E's with something. So we're on the E, we strike down with the ring finger, it covers the hole completely and comes right back up again. We're not hanging on that hole very long. So that's the first variation, and if you get to that E with the doubling, so we're on the C, we have to lift that top finger first for the G grace note of the doubling. We transition up to the E, that top finger snaps down, and then our second grace note can occur. The middle finger of the top hand goes up and down. So that's the first time it occurs. Second time it occurs, instead of going up to the E, we're going to drop down to the B. And we're going to do non-embellished version first, then I'll talk about that crazy Torluith. So non-embellished version first. So from the C, we just drop down 1 note to the B. We drop down 1 finger, our pinky finger lifts up, that's our B. And then we're going to do a strike. Both fingers cover the hole and come right back up again. And if we're going to tackle that Torluith, you better be able to do that grace note first, coming from C to B. So that G grace note finger lifts, you do your note transition from C to B, that top finger comes down. So what is a Torluith? We drop down to low G, then we do a D grace note with the top finger of the bottom hand. That's the first half. Second half, we're on the low G again. We need to do an E grace note to get back up to B. That's the second half of the Torluith. So that second half, that E finger, or the bottom finger of the top hand has to lift. We go to the B, that finger comes back down again. And if we put both halves together, and the problem is, it has to be a whole lot quicker. But practicing it just like that outside of a tune can be really helpful to get to work on your fingers, work on your technique with that embellishment. When it's getting speeded up, then you can add it back into the tune. And if you can't play that quick, or it's just too much of a struggle, just do the strike. The strike sounds really nice too. So that's the second part. And now the third part this variation comes in. It's a lot simpler than that for Lewis, so don't panic. Here's the third part. That's all it is. So it's exactly the same as the first one we did. You don't have to do that E doubling, but either way you're ending up on that E. Instead of hanging on that E and doing the strike after that long E, we're going to just keep that finger down and drop right down to low A. And that's all that third part is. So let me play each of those three ones for you just as a review. And again, the workshop link is below for all the details. We'll string all these parts together in future lessons. Here's the first variation. And no embellishments. Other than the strike, of course. Here's the second variation. And no embellishments. Other than the strike, of course. And here's the last variation. And without embellishments. And you will note I got sheet music. I've highlighted these little sections so you know exactly where I'm talking about in the tune, so you can check that out in the link below. But there is a burl on that low A. I don't play it. I think it sounds too rushed. I don't like the sound of it there, so I'm not going to teach it. But if you're real burl crazy, you could always add that in. So you could add that in, but I don't like the way that sounds in this part of the tune. So bear with me on that. If you're burl crazy, I apologize. If you're not burl crazy, whew, we don't have to worry about that one. Either way, hope to see you in lesson 3.